Stampers, this is Lisa with Queen Bee Creations, here today with another Facebook Live. And so today I'm going to be working on making a few like Veterans Day or patriotic type cards. And one thing I did notice is that we don't have a patriotic set in our catalog at the moment. I do have a couple up there on my shelf, but they're retired, and so I can't use them for you guys. But there are ways to take our existing stamps and use them for patriotic themes. A lot of our stamp sets will come out with a theme in mind, but it doesn't mean that they can't be tweaked. And so today we're tweaking a few. I've got a couple different things I'm using on the card I'm making today. I've used our new letter die cuts, and I'm also using the well-written dies framelits for the welcome. The Holmes is, it's another letter. Anyway, and then the stars framelits, and then silhouette scenes for the umbrella. And to me, oops, this side, to me that looked like, you know, an officer coming home and, you know, catching up with his wife for the first time off the plane, kind of one of those scenes. And it doesn't have to be, but for this card, that's what I chose to use it for. So we're going to make that one, and I've cut out some other pieces we can play around with. So let's go ahead and get started. I'll get you down here on my desk. Now, the silhouette scenes is one of those solid images that sometimes I have trouble making solid. So we have out our handy dandy Stamparatus. Hi Patricia, hi Cheryl. With the Stamparatus, we're able to stamp multiple times in exactly the same spot. So if the first time I stamp this up, it's not dark enough for my liking, we can go ahead and ink it once again. So I'm going to go ahead by putting my paper flushed up into the corner, attaching my little magnet on the other side. Now, if you wanted to, you could put a stamp case underneath here. We've found that's the perfect height, that you're not pushing too hard on those plates. And then I'm going to use Night of Navy ink. And I'm going to ink it up what I think is pretty good. Stamp it down onto my cardstock. I've got Whisper White that is 5 inches by 3 3/4. And it's okay. It's not quite dark enough for me, so I'm going to go ahead and add some more ink. And do this again. There, now that's much darker. I am much happier with that. Look at this nice solid image we got this time. And then, like I said, I used our die cuts. I used Well Written to come out with the name, or the word welcome. Then, what are these letters called? It was hand-lettered prose, something like that. I can't pronounce the word. Maybe that's why I can never remember it. Was the name of the stamp set bundle. Nothing like not knowing how to pronounce something. Yeah, P-R-O-S-E, hand-lettered prose. I'm not sure what that means, but it's the alphabet. Hand-lettered alphabet. To create the word home. And then I have the new star set, and this is actually out of our holiday catalog. This was intended for Christmas, but it's full of stars, and what's more patriotic than a whole bunch of stars, right? So I just pulled out some of those and cut those in red, white, and blue, and some various sizes. And then there was also a swirl. This is what I used up on the top, and then I just colored it in with Stampin' Blends to get some red in there. Wasn't sure I was real happy with it, so I think we might do something different this time. Oh, and the blue that I used was that tie-dye paper that's in our catalog. I'm also going to be showing you some ways that I used our patterned paper different than what intended. I like that tie-dye package. I'm not a tie-dye fan, that's not my style, but I love the way it's variegated colors. And so I use that a lot for the solid color backs. Here, I see a silhouette. So these solid color backs will give me like some purple tones or some green tones or some oranges and some blues, and I can die cut anything out of those and get kind of a variation of color, which I like. And so on something thin like this, it's not real obvious, but it does give a little bit of variation to the color, which makes it just different than stamping it out in a solid color. So I do love the stars. Like I said, this is stitched stars, so they are stitched on the edges. And again, made for Christmas, but there's lots and lots of uses for stars. Can you see the stitching in there? It stitches on the inside and the outside, so if you wanted to create a negative with a stitched around it, you can do that as well. Oh, already got some ink on there. Now, that's just a chance to embellish, right? We don't worry about that too much because I can always cover that up with something. But something you might want to consider is getting a sand eraser. I don't know if you've seen these before. I picked it up at another store. Just it's in the art department, probably for drafters or something. And it gives a little more abrasive rub to getting some of that ink off. Now, it didn't remove all of it, and if I rubbed too hard it would kind of rip into the cardstock a little bit, but it removed it enough that it's more than I would have got with the gum eraser. Now this is great for removing adhesive, maybe pencil lines, little marks of ink, but when they get a little bit darker, that's when I reach for my sand eraser, because we don't want to start all over again, right? So like I said, we're coming back to our card. I have the Night of Navy card base, 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. And then I have Real Red, and this is 4 inches by 5 1/4. So 5.5, 5 1/4, 5 for our length on this. And then on the width, we went 4 1/4, 4, 3 3/4. So you can see how a 1/4 inch on each side just gives us that perfect layered look. And I chose to flip this up a little bit. Last time I used a red card base, this time I'm using blue. Kind of the same look, a little bit different. Allows me to give some variation to things. And then I have my letters already cut out. And to glue these down, I kind of lay them out thinking, okay, they go about there. And our natural tendency is to work, you know, spelling it out, H-O-M-E. But because I don't want to run out of room on this side, I want my letters to be flush up to the right side, I'm going to start there and I'm going to adhere them going backwards. So I'm going to come in here with some adhesive. This is just a fine-tipped bottle. It's just kind of similar to our fine-tip glue, only this allows me to use our multi-purpose glue. I tend to like that a little better than our fine tip, but I liked the idea of the tip, so I found a bottle that would let me pour my multi-purpose into there and still have the fine tip. And so I'm trying to keep it a little bit level with his feet as I'm coming across. These letters are handwritten, so there's a little bit of wiggle to them, so they're not going to be quite as straight as our other letters were, but still wanted to make them a little semi-smooth. Did you all have a nice weekend? I did a craft fair at our local college and did really well. I was really excited. It was 3 days long, which was kind of hard on my back. Standing in one spot for that long was hard. But I got lots of new contacts and people are excited about Stampin' Up. I was really surprised if people look at me and go, oh, is Stampin' Up still around? Of course we're still around. It's awesome. Where would it go, right? So I handed out lots and lots of catalogs, and hopefully we're going to get more people excited about crafting. Now for the welcome, I don't want to say I cheated, but the letters are so little. I used some of our leftover. I had some of the Sizzix adhesive sheets that we had from our last catalog, and that allowed me to put it on the back of the cardstock and then die cut, and then I can just peel this off and it's sticky on the back. So that was super cool. I'm really hoping this stuff comes back as we, you know, roll out some of our new and improved products. Have you seen our trimmer yet? Oh, I love the new trimmer. One person mentioned to me that they were a little bit frustrated. The lettering is hand lettered prose, P-R-O-S-E. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right, but that's what letters we're using for down here. The welcome was well written dies. Our Stampin' Up trimmer has a much bigger blade, a much bigger scoring tool. I find it really simple to lift up and down. You have to know that there's a little knob at the end and it goes into a little hole. So when you go to lift it up, you want to make sure that you're not rubbing those two things together, or it will be a little stiff to open. It's also going to be stiff when you first get started, but the more you use it, the more it will loosen up. We also now have little markings in the gap, so we can still get those measurements inside this part that pivots. But we did not have numbers on the outside, and a couple people have mentioned they found that a little bit frustrating, and so I did a little bit of research, and there are several sticker measurements. My husband actually pointed out that they use metal ones for something in his woodworking shop. So you can pick them up in metal, you can pick them up in paper, you can pick them up in vinyl. This one actually was, I went to IKEA a couple weekends ago and they had these paper tape measures. So you could measure the furniture and see if it was going to work out in your home. And so I brought it back, cut it down a little bit, put some adhesive on the back, and then just lined it up. And now I have measurements on my edge. So if that's one of the things that might bug you about our new trimmer, don't let it stop you. Totally fixable. That's one of the things we do as Stampin' Up! Demonstrators. We find things that people are frustrated with and we give them solutions, right? That's what we're here for. So, like I said, last time we went ahead and used this swirl die, which I really liked. Well, when I used it, it punched out a whole bunch of little ones. And so I thought maybe this time we would use those and just kind of randomly stick them around and place those on the front of the card. What do you think? I probably should punch out one more. Doing things in even numbers, I don't know, frustrates me a little bit. One of the things I learned very early on in my Stampin' Up! Career is that artists prefer to do things in odd numbers. And so when we're adding embellishments and things, we're told to do them in, you know, 3s, 5s, 7s. That it's easier on the eye somehow. I also know about the rule of thirds. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but you know, like our little people right here, they're in 1/3 of the card. This is kind of 1/3 of the card. Again, that's for easy eye flow. These little stars, like I said, they came out of that CS Silhouette Designer Series paper, and so there is a different design on the back. But I'm going to use the solid blue side. So what do you think? One more or no? Well, we'll put it down. It'll cover up my little boo-boo, and then if it really starts to bother me later, I think I'll die cut one more. I can easily lay that die on the paper and only cut out that one section that I need. I don't have to, when using a portion of a die, I don't have to use the entire die. I can set it down and only cut, you know, put paper under this part of it just so I get that one star. Also, you can use the well-written dies. They're all words, but because they're a cursive and they kind of loop into another, we can also cut them apart and put them together and make new words. I know some people haven't thought of that, but you know, like you could just cut off right here and you have the word me. You could cut off here, you have the word come. You could, you know, take another word and cut off little ends of it, and you know, maybe an S from this one and a W from this one, and you know, you could move them together and create all kinds of new words. So don't be limited by what, you know, the set is designed for. We can always turn it into something else. Just, you know, open up your mind a little bit and say, okay, well, I'm looking for, and then, you know, I don't have it, but what can I use to make it do what I want it to do? You know, like I didn't have patriotic things. And so I just kind of poked through my stash and I found some stuff, and I think we came out with a very patriotic card. I think it's cute. Like I said, we can also, let's see, let's take this, this is a full sheet, so I'm going to cut it in half and then score it in half. So I'm cutting it 5 1/2, scoring it 4 1/4. That'll give me a white card base. And I know this isn't quite red and white stripes, but I thought it was fairly close. But this is actually snowman paper. And I was looking for something, again, to do sort of a flag with. And I looked at the back and I thought, that kind of looks, you know, red and white stripey. And then when I put this blue in the corner, this blue was 2 inches by 2 1/2. I put that there. I cut out some of our smallest stars. Again, I don't have them small enough where I could do 50 of them, of course, but I could probably do 5. And look, there's another patriotic card. You could easily put a thank you at the bottom, a welcome home, you know, anything that you wanted to. You know, we're grateful for you, whatever you wanted to do. It's kind of a shame to cover up the back side of this because the snowmen are sparkly. They've got glitter built into them. They're so pretty. But we do what we have to, right? So I'm going to flip this over and start assembling a flag. I locked the puppies upstairs this time, thinking that would make them quieter. Not so much. I can hear them running back and forth over my head. My studio's in the basement, so they're still up there playing. Hopefully they're not loud enough that you guys can hear them. So there we have a flag. We could also layer the stars. So we can start with a red and a blue, and then maybe put a white on top. So we could still come up with red, white, and blue and use this as an element on a card. Look at that pretty stitching in there. We could also maybe lay down a strip of gray, and then we could add red, white, and blue stars, you know, across the bottom. Yeah, maybe not necessarily on this card, but a different one. You know, we could See, we would need some kind of stripe across there, or we could put maybe circles down the side or other stars down the side and put the stars in them. There's just so many different things. If you take a look on Pinterest and you search Stampin' Up! Card layouts, you will find all sorts of layouts. And if we just think of using stars and we think red, white, and blue, we can easily come up with some cute Veterans Day cards. We can also, like I said, again, I'm trying to get you guys to think outside the box when using your supplies. This is the garden paper, and this is another one. Sheesh. The craft fair this weekend was really fun, but it certainly fried my brain. I'm not remembering anything this morning. Okay, so Perennial Essence is this one, and the other is Garden Lane Designer Series paper. And, you know, they look flowery and like leaves as we see them as they are, but when I take and use the die to cut them out, they almost look a little bit camouflage. So we can also do, you know, some die cuts in a camouflagey type look, even though that's not what that was designed for. And that was just using DSP. We could also use ink. There's just like all sorts of things. So like I said, just take a look at what you have. You know, if you're looking for a certain occasion and you don't have what you need, think outside the box. And you can come up with all sorts of beautiful ideas. So I hope you enjoyed today's ideas, and it sparks a little bit of interest for you to go out and look at your supplies with a new eye. You know, the idea is I don't want to sell you things that you're not going to use. The idea is I want you to use your supplies. This is what I use for my stress buster, and I don't know what I would do without it. I so appreciate that you guys support me in doing a job that I absolutely love, and make money at it so I can stay home and play with stamps, ink, and paper. So again, thank you for joining me, and I hope you have a happy Veterans Day, and I will see you next week. Thank you. Bye.